Welcome back. Or, if this is your first time here, welcome. Tonight, I'm going to walk you through something the history books skip over. By 1917, France had 137 licensed brothels spread across 35 towns behind the Western Front. They were called maisons tolérées, tolerated houses. The British used them, the French built them. And when American soldiers arrived in France that spring, they found a system that had been running like clockwork for 3 years. You'll learn exactly what those Franks bought, down to every detail. You'll learn why officers walked through a blue door while enlisted men queued at a red one. You'll learn what a woman working those red lamp houses was expected to service in a single 12-hour shift. The number will turn your stomach, and you'll learn the French term they used for it, a word borrowed from the slaughterhouse floor. I'll save that one for later. If you were a British officer in 1917, you walked into a blue lamp establishment, paid 10 francs, and received champagne, a proper bed, and a woman who spoke English. If you were an enlisted man, you stood in a queue of 150 soldiers, paid 6 francs total, and got a stretcher with 1 sheet and 3 minutes with a woman who'd already seen 20 men that afternoon. Same army, same war, same brothels, different doors. But here's the question I keep coming back to. The British military knew condoms prevented disease. They'd known for decades. They handed them to officers at blue lamp establishments. They looked enlisted men in the eye and said, "Not for you." By the end of the war, 150,000 soldiers were infected. Men who survived the trenches came home with syphilis because someone decided their bodies weren't worth a few pence of rubber. Was that a mistake? Or was that the point? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. The system wasn't designed to protect soldiers. It was designed to sort them. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You think class doesn't follow you into every room, but you've paid for the upgrade, the better seat, the shorter line, the room with the view. You know how it works. Money doesn't just buy more, it buys different. It buys someone who treats you like you matter. The maisons tolérées worked the same way. Same need, same women, different doors. And the color of the lamp outside told everyone exactly what you were worth. Let me take you to northern France. Spring 1917. You're a British officer, a captain, let's say. You've been rotated back from the front lines for a week of what the army calls rest. You're 32 years old. You went to Oxford before the war. You've lost 11 men from your company in the last month. Men whose names you knew, whose bodies you helped carry to the burial detail. You're staying in a requisitioned house in Amiens. The owners fled south in 1914. Their furniture is still here. Their photographs are still on the mantel. You sleep in their bed. It's Thursday evening. Another officer, a major you've known since training, mentions a place. A blue lamp establishment on a quiet street near the cathedral. Discreet, clean, officers only. You've heard of these places. You've never been inside one. Tonight, you decide to go. The street is narrow and cobblestoned. Gas lamps flicker against the old stone buildings. You find the address easily enough. A townhouse with heavy curtains drawn across the windows, and a single blue lamp hanging beside the door. Not bright, not advertising, just present. A signal for those who know what to look for. You knock. A woman in her 50s opens the door. She's dressed respectably. Dark dress, hair pinned up, a cameo brooch at her collar. She looks like someone's aunt. She takes in your uniform, your rank insignia, and steps aside without a word. Inside, it's warmer than you expected. A parlor with velvet furniture, heavy drapes, oil paintings on the walls, landscapes, nothing provocative. A fire burns in the grate. There's a gramophone playing something French and melancholy. 3 other officers sit in armchairs, drinks in hand, talking quietly. The madame leads you to a small table near the window. She brings you champagne without asking. Real champagne, not the watered wine they serve in the estaminet. She pours it into a crystal glass. Monsieur le Capitaine, she says, please, make yourself comfortable. The ladies will be down shortly. You drink. The champagne is cold and dry. You haven't tasted anything this good since before the war. And then the women appear. 3 of them, descending a curved staircase at the back of the room. They're young, mid-20s perhaps. They're dressed for evening, not for the street. One wears deep burgundy silk that catches the firelight as she moves, the fabric skimming her hips, her neckline cut low enough to show the shadow between her breasts. Another wears cream-colored lace, delicate and translucent at the shoulders. The third is in midnight blue, her dark hair pinned up with small pearls, a few loose curls framing her face. They smell like perfume, something floral, jasmine maybe, with something warmer underneath. They move through the room with practiced grace, stopping to speak with the other officers, their voices low and musical. The woman in burgundy approaches your table. She has green eyes and a small beauty mark near her lip. She smiles, not the forced smile of someone performing, but something warmer, more knowing. You're new here, she says. Her English is accented but fluent. First time in Amiens? First time here, you say. She sits across from you without asking permission. The madame brings another glass. The woman pours herself champagne, takes a sip, and studies you over the rim. You look tired, she says, not as an accusation, as an observation. I am. Then, let's not rush. Her name is Marguerite, or at least that's the name she gives you. You talk for an hour. She asks about England. She's never been, and you find yourself describing the Thames in autumn, the way the fog rises off the water in the early morning. She listens like she's genuinely interested. Maybe she is. Maybe this is part of the performance. After a while, it doesn't matter. She refills your glass. Her fingers brush yours as she hands it back. The touch is light, deliberate, gone before you can respond to it. Would you like to come upstairs? She asks. You would. The room is small but well appointed, a proper bed with clean white sheets and a down comforter, a washstand with a porcelain basin, curtains drawn against the night. A single lamp casts warm light across the walls. On the nightstand, a small dish holds several items. A glass of wine, a clean towel, and a small paper packet, a condom provided by the house. Marguerite closes the door behind her. She moves to the lamp and dims it slightly. Then she turns to face you. She doesn't rush. She lets you watch as she reaches behind her neck and unfastens something. The burgundy silk loosens. She lets it fall from her shoulders, catching it at her waist, then letting it pool at her feet. Underneath, a thin chemise, nearly translucent in the lamplight. She steps closer. Her hand finds your chest, rests there. We have all night, she says. If you want it. You want it. Afterward, she lies beside you. The sheets are cool against your skin. Through the window, you can hear the distant rumble of artillery. 20 miles away, maybe less. The war is still there. It's always there. But for this hour, this room, it feels very far away. She traces a finger along your shoulder. You should sleep, she says. I'll wake you before dawn. In the morning, you pay the madam. 10 francs for the evening, another 5 for the champagne. It's expensive. 2 weeks' pay for an enlisted man, but you can afford it. You're an officer. This is what officers do. You walk back to your billet as the sun rises over Amiens. The streets are quiet. The cathedral spire catches the first light. You feel almost human again. Let's pause here. That was a blue lamp establishment. That was the officer's experience. Champagne, conversation, a woman who spoke your language, who took her time, who made the transaction feel like something other than what it was. A bed with clean sheets, a condom on the nightstand. Now let me show you the red lamp. Same town, same week, different door. You're a private now, 22 years old. You worked in a textile mill in Manchester before the war. You've been in France for 8 months. You've survived 2 major offensives. Your closest friend died 3 days ago. when a shell landed in the trench next to yours. You can still hear the sound it made. You've been rotated back to Béthune for rest. It's 5:45 in the evening. The red lamp isn't lit yet. But Robert Graves, the British poet and officer, described what you'd see next in his memoir, Goodbye to All That. He wrote it down, a queue of 150 men waiting outside a single door, each to have his short turn, with one of 3 women inside. 150 men, 3 women. You join the line. At 6 o'clock, the lamp flickers on, crimson glass, bright enough to see from a block away. The door opens. The queue begins to move. Inside, it's smaller than you expected. There's a front room with a few wooden chairs, a counter, and the madame, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for conversation. She doesn't greet you. She holds out her hand. You give her 1 franc. She hands you a small metal disc, a jeton de bordel, a brothel token. This is important. You don't hand money to the woman upstairs. You hand her the token. The token is the transaction. It severs the direct exchange between you and her. It makes the whole thing administrative, procedural, like buying a ticket for the train. These tokens still exist, by the way. You can find them in antique shops, in military collections, in the drawers of old men who never told their families where they came from. Small metal discs, stamped with numbers or names or nothing at all. Physical evidence of a system that processed men like inventory. You wait in the front room. There's no champagne here, no gramophone, just wooden chairs and the smell of tobacco and sweat and carbolic soap. Other soldiers sit around you, not talking. Everyone's waiting for the same thing. A woman appears at the top of a narrow staircase. She's perhaps 25. Plain dress, hair pulled back. She looks tired. She gestures. The next man in line stands and follows her up. 4 minutes later, he comes back down. She reappears, gestures again. The line advances. When it's your turn, you climb the stairs. The hallway is narrow and dim. She opens a door. Inside, a stretcher frame with a thin sheet, 1 blanket, no pillow, a basin of water on a small wooden table. That's it. This isn't a bedroom. It's a station, a processing point. You hand her the token. She sets it on the table without looking at it. She's done this 40 times today. It's 6:30 in the evening. She started at noon. She doesn't undress completely. Neither do you. There's no conversation, no names exchanged. The encounter lasts 3 minutes, maybe 4. When it's over, she uses the basin. She doesn't ask if you want to stay. You don't. There's no condom. Blue lamp establishments provided them. Red lamps didn't. You go back downstairs. Another man is already climbing up behind you. Outside, the queue is longer now. Maybe 200 men. Same army, same war, same system, different doors. Let's pause here again, because there's a word for what happened inside those red lamp houses, a French term that tells you everything, l'abattage. It translates to the slaughter, the same word they used for the killing floor in a slaughterhouse, assembly line work, industrial processing. That's what the French called it. That's what it was. Dr. Léon Bizard was a French military physician who worked behind the lines during the war. In his 1925 memoir, he described what he saw. He called it a hard, dangerous, and disgusting business. He wrote that women in these houses were expected to service 50, 60, up to 100 men of all colors and races in a single day. Let that land. 100 men in one 12-hour shift. That's 1 soldier every 7 minutes. No breaks, no rest, for 6 days a week. That's the reality the token bought. That's what the jeton de bordel paid for. Not pleasure, not intimacy. Access to a body on a schedule. Now, let me show you the numbers. In 1915, British medical officers in Le Havre, a port city where troops disembarked, conducted a study. They counted visitors to the brothels on just one street. 1 year, 171,000 men. That's 468 men per day walking through those doors. On one street, in one city. Across France, there were 137 licensed brothels in 35 towns. The French army recorded over 1 million cases of syphilis and gonorrhea during the war. The British? 150,000 infections. 1 in 5 hospital admissions for British troops in 1916 wasn't for shrapnel wounds or trench foot. It was for venereal disease. And here's where the system reveals itself. The British military knew condoms worked. They'd known for decades. They provided them at blue lamp establishments for officers. They withheld them at red lamps for enlisted men. This wasn't oversight, this was policy. Think about what that means. The same military that sent men to die in trenches made a calculation about their bodies in brothels. Officers were worth protecting, their health, their futures, their ability to return to society after the war, that mattered. Enlisted men were expendable. If they got sick, there were more where they came from. 150,000 infections. That's not a failure of the system. That's the system working exactly as designed. The brothel was a sorting mechanism. It reinforced hierarchy. It reminded every soldier exactly where he stood, not just in the army, but in the empire. The stretcher and the bed, the token and the champagne, the condom and its absence. Same war, same bodies, different value. Now let me tell you what happened when the Americans arrived. Summer 1917. The first American troops land at Saint-Nazaire. They walk into a system that's been running for 3 years. The French expect them to use it. The British assume they will. And at first, they do. Within weeks, infection rates among American soldiers hit 190 cases per 1,000 men. General John Pershing lost his mind. On July 7, 1917, Pershing issued General Order No. 6. Any soldier who contracted venereal disease renders himself inefficient as a soldier and fails his duty to his country. Soldiers would face mandatory medical inspections, educational lectures on sexual discipline, and any soldier who got sick could face court-martial. The maisons tolérées, officially off-limits to American troops. The French were baffled, the British were amused, and the Americans, they ignored it. Because Pershing couldn't actually stop them. He couldn't station military police outside every brothel in every town. So the U.S. Army tried something different. They built prophylaxis stations. If you've never heard of a prophylaxis station, let me explain. It was a small building, sometimes just a tent, set up near railway stations, camps, or anywhere soldiers gathered, staffed around the clock. Its sole purpose, chemical disinfection after sex. Here's how it worked. You're an American soldier. You've just had sex. Maybe at an off-limits brothel, maybe with someone you met at a cafe, doesn't matter. You have 3 hours to report to a prophylaxis station. That's the window. You walk in, you fill out a form, U.S. Army Form WD-MD number 77, the venereal prophylaxis. Slip. Your name, your unit, the date, the time. This is your confession, a bureaucratic record of your sin. Then the treatment begins. First, you wash. Soap and water, thorough scrubbing. Then the medic hands you a syringe filled with a solution of protargol, a silver-based disinfectant. You inject it into your you-know-what. You hold it there for 5 minutes. One soldier described the sensation as almost fainting during his first treatment. Finally, you apply calomel ointment, mercurous chloride, over your entire affected area. Mercury. You rub it in for several minutes. The whole process takes about 15 minutes. When it's done, you're absolved. You're form. 77 proves you followed protocol. You're clean, fit to fight. If you skip the station and later develop symptoms, court-martial, fined half your pay, possibly hard labor. The U.S. Army was asking 18-year-old farm boys to voluntarily admit to their commanding officers that they just had sex, and then to torture themselves with mercury and silver as penance. It didn't work. The line at the prophylaxis station was often longer than the line at the brothel. The treatment was painful enough that men avoided it. And the form, that damned form, created a paper trail that soldiers didn't want to leave behind. By the end of the war, 415,000 American soldiers had contracted venereal disease. That's equivalent to 7.5 million lost man days, or roughly 21,000 soldiers absent from duty for an entire year. Let me tell you what the French government offered Pershing in private. When the dispute over the Maisons Tolérées escalated, French Prime Minister Georges Clemenceau sent Pershing a proposal. American medical authorities could take control of designated brothels. They'd operate solely for American soldiers. The U.S. Army could set its own rules, conduct its own inspections, ensure its own standards. Pershing passed the memo to Raymond Fosdick, his advisor on morale. Fosdick sent it to Secretary of War Newton Baker. Baker's response, in a private letter: "For God's sake, Raymond, don't show this to the president or he'll stop the war. Think about that." The French were offering exactly what the British had, what the Canadians, the Australians, the New Zealanders all used: a regulated system to keep soldiers healthy. But America couldn't accept it, not because it wouldn't work, but because the American public couldn't know it existed. The performance mattered more than the outcome. Now let me tell you about the women. Because we've been talking about systems and numbers and tokens, and we haven't talked about them. Who were they? We don't know most of their names. They didn't write memoirs. They didn't leave diaries. Many were illiterate. The few records that survive come from Madame's account books, military medical logs, or police registries. What we know is this: thousands of women worked in the Maisons Tolérées during the war. Some were professional women of the night from before 1914. Others were war widows, women whose husbands were at the front, farm girls who came to the cities looking for factory work and found this instead. The pay was better than a munitions plant. That mattered. Robert Graves described what his servant told him about the women in Bethune. Each one, his servant said, waits of 150 men waiting outside the door, each to have his short turn. According to the assistant provost marshal, Graves wrote, 3 weeks was the usual limit, after which she retired on her earnings, pale but proud. 3 weeks, 30 men a day minimum, 6 days a week. That's 540 men in 3 weeks, maybe more. And then what? We don't know. The records don't follow them. Did they go back to their villages? Did they marry? Did they die of syphilis 5 years later in a charity hospital? The system consumed them and moved on. The madame kept the books, the military kept the medical logs, the women kept nothing. L'abattage, the slaughter, that was their word for it too. Now let me tell you about one soldier. Private William Roworth was 15 when he enlisted, 3 years under the legal age. He lied about his birthday. Thousands of boys did. He was sent to France in 1916. He survived 2 years of trench warfare. He kept a diary. One entry describes his visit to a red lamp establishment. He was a virgin. Many of them were. Before major offensives, battles where 80% of men were expected to die, the lines outside the brothels grew longer. One witness described 300 men waiting outside a single establishment the night before an attack. They didn't want to die without knowing what it felt like. Roworth's diary entry about his experience is heartbreaking in its simplicity. It was like pulling your thing, but you have someone to talk to. That's it. That's all he wrote. But it tells you everything, doesn't it? He wasn't there for pleasure. He was there because he wanted another human being to touch him before he died. So, let me answer the question I asked at the beginning. The British military provided condoms to officers and withheld them from enlisted men. 150,000 soldiers got sick. Was that negligence, or was that policy? It was policy. The blue lamp and the red lamp weren't different markets. They were the same market, stratified by class. The officer got the champagne and the bed and the condom because his body had value. The enlisted man got the stretcher and the 3 minutes and the infection because his body was expendable. The French built a system that acknowledged what men facing death would do. They regulated it, they taxed it, they medicalized it. It wasn't humane. It was practical. The Americans built a system that punished what men facing death would do. They moralized it. They criminalized it. And when that didn't work, they tortured men into compliance with mercury injections. Both systems failed to stop disease, but only one asked soldiers to lie about their own biology to avoid prison. Here's the takeaway. The maisons tolérées weren't an accident of war. They were the result of a very old calculation. Young men will die. Before they die, they will seek comfort. You can pretend that's not true, or you can build a system around it. France chose the system. America chose the performance. And the women who made both possible, they disappeared into history. 3 weeks at a time, pale but proud, their names lost, their bodies consumed. Their only record, a metal token in an antique shop drawer, stamped with a number no one remembers. The jeton de bordel, the price of the machine.